Hi, I'm Madeline Harper, 28, living in Chicago, and today should have been the happiest day of my life. But somehow, it felt like the universe decided to test me in the cruelest way possible. I've always tried to be the perfect daughter, the perfect fiancée, the perfect planner. My career. On track. My relationship with my fiancé? Solid. But family? Well, that's always been complicated. As I was finalizing the seating chart at my wedding reception, my phone buzzed with a text from my dad, Robert Harper. I opened it, expecting a sweet note or a reminder about something trivial. Instead, it said, "Madeline, I need you to film my proposal tonight. I've been thinking about asking Melissa, and I want it to be perfect. Can you handle that?" I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. My own wedding reception, the day I should be in the spotlight with my husband-to-be, and my dad was asking me to film his proposal to another woman in front of all our guests. I couldn't even process it. I felt my chest tighten, and anger bubbled up, mixed with disbelief. Why would he think this was okay? Why would anyone consider putting me, the bride, in this position? The humiliation, the emotional betrayal, it all hit me at once. I wanted to scream, to run, to just vanish. But instead, I typed a shaky reply, trying to keep some composure. This wasn't just a weird request. It felt like the final straw in a lifetime of being overlooked, dismissed, and ignored. Today, my wedding day, should have been a celebration of love. Instead, it had become a stage for my father's selfishness. And in that moment, I realized I was at a breaking point. Growing up with my dad, Robert, was like living with a constant storm that I could never predict. He was charming, funny, and generous, with everyone else. Me. I was always the one waiting for his approval, the one hoping he would notice me. My mom, Janet Harper, was usually critical, pointing out my mistakes rather than celebrating my wins. "Madeline, why can't you be more like your brother?" she'd say, comparing me to Ethan, my older brother who could do no wrong in their eyes. I remember one Christmas morning, around age 9, watching Ethan open a shiny new bicycle while I got a board game that I didn't even want. I smiled and thanked them, but inside, a small part of me whispered, "Why am I never enough?" Birthdays, holidays, awards. No matter what I accomplished, my efforts always seemed to fade into the background. I learned early to hide my disappointment, to internalize the hurt, and to convince myself that love was conditional. I became the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who made life easier for everyone else. Even my father's attention was unpredictable. He'd show up for Ethan's baseball games, cheering him on with pride, while I sat in the stands, unnoticed. When he did notice me, it was often for something minor, helping him carry groceries or fixing his computer. It was as if my worth was measured only by the service I provided, never by who I was. And yet, despite it all, I loved him. I wanted him to be proud of me, to see me as more than just a helper, more than just the background character in his life. But that longing came with a cost. Years of emotional bruises that I carried silently, building up a reservoir of frustration and pain. Now, standing on the brink of my own wedding day, I could feel all those old wounds resurfacing. My father's request, to film his proposal to another woman at my wedding, wasn't just shocking. It was a cruel echo of every time I had been overlooked, dismissed, or treated as less important. It felt like history repeating itself, and this time, I wasn't sure I could endure it. In the weeks leading up to my wedding, I poured every ounce of energy I had into making the day perfect. Every flower arrangement, every seating chart, every playlist, I handled it all. My fiancé, Caleb Morgan, tried to help, but I insisted on doing most things myself. After all, I wanted this day to be flawless, a reflection of the life we were about to start together. I stayed up late at night, meticulously organizing schedules for vendors, double-checking catering orders, and responding to endless emails. I even gave up a promotion at work because I didn't want to miss any critical wedding planning moments. Every little sacrifice I made felt worth it, until my father's request hit me like a ton of bricks. I replayed the message over and over in my mind. Did he really think this was acceptable? My own wedding reception, my moment to shine, and he wanted me to be a camera woman for his proposal to another woman. I could practically hear him laughing, thinking it was a harmless favor, oblivious to the humiliation it would cause me. Every past disappointment and small betrayal rushed back. The way he ignored me as a child, the times he celebrated Ethan while barely noticing me, and the countless moments he prioritized everyone else over his own daughter. Suddenly, it all made sense. My efforts, my sacrifices, my loyalty, they had never been about me in his eyes. They were about convenience, appearances, and fulfilling his desires. Even trying to talk to him felt impossible. I could almost see his charming smile masking a complete lack of understanding. He didn't see the emotional labor I'd poured into my wedding. He didn't see the sleepless nights, the stress, or the heartache. All he saw was a convenient person to execute his selfish plan. The more I thought about it, the more the anger and frustration built inside me. This wasn't just a request, it was a test of my loyalty, an emotional manipulation designed to keep me in my old role, invisible, compliant, and self-sacrificing. And I realized painfully that maybe this was the moment I couldn't just bend anymore. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself. But deep down, I knew the tension was only rising, and my breaking point was fast approaching. The moment came faster than I expected. The reception was in full swing. Guests laughing, glasses clinking, music filling the air. I was standing near the entrance, adjusting my camera bag, when my dad, Robert, approached with that same charming smile that usually masked his disregard for my feelings. "Madeline," he said casually, "I really need you to make sure this proposal is perfect. Melissa has no idea. Can you handle it?" I froze. My hands tightened around the camera strap. "Dad, this is my wedding," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm supposed to be celebrating with everyone, not filming you asking someone else to marry you." He waved me off, like I was overreacting. "It's just a little favor. Don't be dramatic. It'll be fun. Everyone will see how talented you are." Fun. Fun. My heart pounded in disbelief. The guests were around, unaware of the emotional hurricane I was in. My fiancé, Caleb, watched from across the room, concern etched on his face, but he didn't intervene. My siblings whispered behind my father, looking uncomfortable but silent. No one defended me. I felt a surge of humiliation, anger, and despair. All the sacrifices I had made, all the sleepless nights, every little effort to please and love my family, it all felt like it meant nothing. My dad's selfishness had made me invisible, even on the most important day of my life. I couldn't stay. I turned on my heel, the sound of my heels echoing against the marble floor like a drumbeat of rebellion. Guests glanced at me, but I ignored them. I didn't need their eyes. I needed space. I stepped outside, letting the cool evening air hit my face, the silence wrapping around me. In that moment, I realized something terrifying and liberating. I could no longer be the girl who disappeared into the background of everyone else's happiness. This was the breaking point, and I had to reclaim myself. After storming out of my own wedding reception, I sat in my car for what felt like hours, gripping the steering wheel as emotions roared inside me. I realized then that my life had been dictated by other people for far too long. My dad's selfish whims, my mother's criticism, even my own attempts to meet everyone's expectations. I couldn't let this pattern continue. The next morning, I made a decision. I quietly postponed the rest of the reception, leaving a note for Caleb explaining I needed some space. He understood, of course. He always had. But the truth was, this wasn't just about the wedding. It was about me reclaiming control over my life. I started selling off belongings I no longer needed, packing only the essentials. I gave my notice at work, explaining I was taking time off to focus on personal growth. I booked a one-way flight to Portland, Oregon, a city I'd always loved but never dared to move to. For the first time, I was making choices purely for myself. Starting over wasn't easy. The first few weeks were lonely. New apartment, new job at a small publishing company, and strangers everywhere. But gradually, I found a rhythm. I met Clara, a coworker who became an instant friend, and Riley, a neighbor who shared my love for weekend hikes. I felt myself laughing again, feeling joy that had nothing to do with anyone else's approval. I also started journaling, pouring all the anger, betrayal, and sadness onto paper. It was exhausting but liberating. I realized that for years, I had defined myself through my dad's eyes, hoping for approval that would never come. Here, in my new life, I was finally free to define myself by my own standards. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, I started to feel peace. The anger dulled, replaced by a quiet confidence. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't just someone's helper or convenient daughter. I was Madeline Harper, a woman who had survived emotional betrayal and reclaimed her life. For the first time in decades, I felt truly, undeniably, unshakably myself. It didn't take long before the calls and messages started coming in. At first, they were subtle. Texts from my mom asking why I had embarrassed the family by walking out of my own reception. Then came the phone calls from Ethan, telling me Dad was just trying to celebrate, and that I had overreacted. When I didn't respond, the guilt-tripping began. My mom called one night, crying dramatically, saying Dad hadn't been sleeping since the wedding, that his health was declining. She begged me to come home, to talk to him, to forgive and forget. But I'd seen this pattern before. Guilt, manipulation, then brushing it all under the rug. I wasn't falling for it this time. A week later, I received a long email from my dad. It wasn't quite an apology. It was filled with lines like, "I just wanted to share a happy moment," and "I thought you'd understand." Not once did he acknowledge the hurt he'd caused me, the fact that he'd stolen the spotlight on the most important day of my life. Even Caleb reached out, telling me he'd spoken to my parents and that they were ready to make amends. But when I asked him what that meant, he admitted they just wanted me to come to dinner and clear the air. Clear the air. Code for pretending nothing happened. I stayed firm. For the first time in my life, I didn't run back to fix things. I didn't cave to their crying, their disappointment, their expectations. Instead, I told them, calmly but firmly, that I needed space, that I wasn't coming home, and that until they could respect me, there would be no reconciliation. It was terrifying, pressing send on that message. But when I did, I felt a strange sense of relief. This was what strength looked like. Not screaming, not fighting, but standing my ground and refusing to be pulled back into a cycle that had nearly broken me. Months have passed since that night, and I can honestly say I've never felt stronger. My relationship with Caleb survived, but it looks different now. Healthier, more honest. He understands that I'm no longer the woman who will bend over backward to keep the peace at the cost of my own happiness. My family. We still talk occasionally, but on my terms. My dad still hasn't given a real apology, but I've stopped waiting for one. The closure I needed didn't come from him. It came from me. I've built a life I actually love. I spend weekends hiking with Clara and Riley. I've started a small book club, and I even launched a side project writing personal essays about breaking generational patterns. People read them and tell me they feel seen, and that makes me feel like all my pain had a purpose. Looking back, walking away that night wasn't just about refusing to film a proposal. It was about refusing to keep living small, refusing to be invisible, refusing to let other people dictate the meaning of my most important moments. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Family isn't proven by blood. It's proven by love and respect. I still love my dad, but now I love myself more. And that, finally, feels like freedom.